Hello and welcome to Jesus for Asia Now. I'm Natalie Wood, and I am not in our studio. I am actually in Sukhothai, Thailand. We are on an island that's heart-shaped inside a lake that is also heart-shaped. But I'm not here to talk about Thailand today. The friends that I have with me are working in Cambodia, and I'd like you to meet Kenton and Rachel Rogers. Welcome. We're so glad to have you with us here. And we're excited to hear what God is doing in your lives and in the project that He's having you work at in Cambodia. So let's start with how you ended up in Cambodia.
8 years ago, we heard about the need of Thailand with the lack of literature that they had. And they had copies of copies of copies. So we basically said, oh, in my heart, I'll pray for them. But after time goes by, you forget about it.
Right.
And so 4 years later, we ended up at a faith camp. And toward the end of faith camp, we found out that basically everything was still the same. The same needs were still there. Not much had been done. And so in my heart, I was like, Lord, I guess I forgot to pray. And maybe you need more than just prayers. If you want me to go and help, I'm willing to go and help. And with that commitment of willing to say I'm willing to help, God continued to lead. And even though we were first looking at Thailand to work there, He actually ended up leading us to Cambodia, which from what I've learned, actually starting there, it's easier to work from than Thailand.
God knew. So you're now in Cambodia, and what's going on in your project?
Our goal was to actually create a publishing house,
Okay.
not just to make books. And I want to see the work grow beyond a donation cycle where money comes in and then we could do a printing and that's all the books that are done. And for then years go by with nothing until another donation comes in, and then you end up really not having the resources. And we need the work to grow. And the work is bigger than just actually having books, because the work includes translators. But if the translator is only there for 1 month, then it's not really going to work. We need writers. We need, then of course, printing, but then we need literature evangelists. So I want to see the work grow completely. But a part of that is to have publishing houses.
Okay.
A publishing house helps to store books, print books, manage the production of books, in that sense of gather the resources, gather the writers, the translators, to help make the process go.
Did you start with a building? Did you start with printing materials and printing equipment?
So when we got to Cambodia, I went and talked with the Cambodian mission president.
Okay.
And I was thinking, maybe I should ask him where would be a good place to, what city? Because there's 3 main cities in Cambodia. So at the end of my talk with him, I asked him what city would be good to start this venture of a publishing house at. And instead of coming back with a city, he came back with, how about some property? And I wasn't thinking about that.
Surprise.
So he said, we can take you and show you it tomorrow. So they took us there.
Okay.
What we ended up looking at was a house that had been abandoned for 7 years. There was a house there, but no windows, no doors.
It was very rough. Almost starting from scratch. Almost.
Yes, almost. There was no water or electricity.
Oh, okay.
So within the first week of being there, we were able to get water and electricity, and later some windows and get the doors. But what was a blessing is that property has land.
Okay.
So we were able to then spend a year building a structure that can house publishing equipment.
Does it have room for storing books too, or?
It has room for shelving,
Okay.
but I don't have the shelving yet.
So then you spent a year building a building.
Yes.
So what happened? Do you have any equipment now?
Yes. So in the process of being there, it has been an ongoing dependence on God for finances. And God hasn't forsaken us.
Okay.
The money that just as it's needed does come in. And so, yes, we'd been here for a while, but still, okay, we have the property. We were starting to live there, but we needed to build something, and you need equipment.
Right.
So we were able to share over Zoom basically with Faith Camp.
Okay.
And during that Faith Camp, there was a matching donation of $100,000.
Yes.
It was a 2-to-1. So that means that with another $50,000, it would be a total of $150,000. To me, it was like, whoa, this is a lot. And God is leading here. Actually,
Right.
inside I got worried. I was like, okay, so how am I supposed to get another $50,000? And of course, anxiety comes up, worry. Then I realized, no, Lord, I didn't even, the first 150, that was you. I mean, the 100,000 that was you.
Right.
So therefore, I'll trust you with the 50. And within 1 week, there were a total of 3 donations given, which equaled
Made the 50,000.
made the $50,000.
I remember that.
And
It was like, yes.
so that was given, and we were then able to purchase equipment, and some of the 150,000 also went to building the building.
So you talked about depending on God for the finances time after time. What about the other parts of it?
So yes, there were times where it was very difficult, and things actually came to crisis points in that sense, where we needed God to help and to work and to lead actually in time frames. So there were some things like that. One of them was actually getting into the village. Because of COVID, the villages were closed, and they said, you can't come in. So we'd had permission from the mission to start working there, start building, and then they said no. And so that left my whole family in a 1-room apartment on the 3rd floor.
During COVID.
During COVID.
When they didn't want you to go anywhere.
Yeah, so after 3 months of being there, the landlord was wanting us to renew not a 3-month contract, but a 6-month contract. And I was like, Lord, my family can't stay here in this 1-room apartment for another 6 months. We either need to go back to the States, or you need to open up the property for us to go to. And again, we can't speak fluently, so it's not like I could call up the chief and talk with him. So we made it a matter of prayer. So we had that 1 week to make our decision and to see what was going to happen. At the end of the week, we needed to, if nothing happened, go back to the States. On Thursday, a friend of ours that's Khmer called us up and said, have you been able to get to the property? How are things going? And I was like, no, we're still stuck here. And he says, okay, well then let me call the chief. And so he actually called the chief, and the chief was much different. He was at this point saying, sure, they can come. Have them come tomorrow. And the chief was going to actually help us with all the paperwork. And we went there, and he helped us to actually get residency there. And I was very thankful. Yeah. So that Sunday, we moved there. That was a crisis point, which as you go through it, it's challenging because you have to say, Lord, you've led this far. Do we just go back? Because it's not just about how God is leading, but how he has led up to this point builds a trust, but then questions.
Right.
So it's just about presenting them to God and saying, Lord, we need your help. But then when you go through it and he opens up the door, and now we are at the property, we know that what? He's led us this far.
He took you there. Right.
And it's a comfort to know that I'm actually where God wants me to be. So we ordered the equipment. Again, during COVID times, you can't just go and easily travel to go see it. Prices for travel are much more expensive. So all the equipment I bought was basically with videos or talking with the people. And so I had actually had a phone conversation with the people that I was buying. These are large commercial copiers from. Basically, I ended up purchasing one of them on an auction. And then when I contacted him, he says, by the way, I have 3 more of them. One's a parts one, so that you'll have spare parts. There's actually a lot of spare parts as well. And then I have these 2 other machines. And in the conversations, I was led to believe that they were nice running machines.
Oh boy.
So when they came, the building wasn't done. But eventually, as it got done, and then we got electricity, we were able to then set them up. When we set them up, you can then see the logs. And I found out that for the last 4 years, they hadn't been used. And that there were a lot of errors. Just like one trial error. And I realized he never had them running. And my heart sank. And it's like, Lord, why you led us this way? Now we can't even print. Yes, I have all the other equipment that is working, but these I can't even print now.
Because he led you to buy those.
Yes, he did. I was woke up just before midnight, which the auction was ending just after midnight. I woke up with 1 hour before the auction ended, and with the thought, you need to bid on this. So I bid on it. I won the auction by only $60. So, and I actually was in prayer, asking the Lord, how much do I bid on this?
Right.
And so I put $1,000 on the bid, and it was only $60 from that.
Wow.
Obviously, God could have let that go, but he let it come to me. And then when it came to getting it shipped, I didn't really have anyone to go and put it on pallets and put it in the container. So I was calling around for people to do that. And I couldn't find anyone.
Mm.
So I was actually getting ready, and I called the guy up and said, I can't even just find anyone to do this for me.
To pack them.
I'm going to have to basically not buy the other 3 machines, and if you want me to, I can pay a garbage truck to come and take away the one that I have purchased if you don't want it, but I can't do anything. Well, he said, here's a number. So I called that number. Well, that person said, no, we don't do it. But without me asking, they said, here's another number. Call them. So I called that person. They said, no. But here's another number. And
calling all these people.
The third one said, no, we don't do it, but here's another number. The fourth one finally said, yes, we do that.
Oh, wow.
But I felt like each one of those, I mean, I can't stop and say God's closed the door here. He actually gave me another number. So I do. I got these machines now, and they don't work. And I was praying, Lord, how do you want me to deal with this? But actually, God led me and gave me help. I mean, not help, outside help, but help to actually understand opening these printers up and starting to work on them. And one of them had a problem. I couldn't figure it out. I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to swap this part with that machine. And in the process of switching them, I moved one of the cables, and one of the cables was loose. And when I moved it, it started working. And so I realized that the only thing I changed were those cables.
The location of the part and the cables.
So just simple things like that, where I know God was helping in that. We did get the printers working. We got 2 of them working. Even though there's been struggles with them, I haven't been left without printing. So we've printed several books, and we've helped out with some of the schools, like Tim Maddox's school, doing their math books. And then there's projects that as a publishing house we're working with too.
Okay, so I know I have, you shared with me already, so I have a little over on our viewers, but where's it at with some of the translation that's been happening?
So even before we started building, I was working with trying to find translators. There were some pieces that I wanted to get translated. 2 of them are these small ones here. One is actually called The Victorious Life, but I've retitled it The Letter of Hope, and it's by Ellen White.
Okay.
Very encouraging, and I wanted the church members here to have access to that.
Okay.
So this was one piece, and then this is another one. It's entitled Victory in Christ. Like, what is Christ to me is the whole kind of theme of it. And then at the end of each one of the sections it says, but remember, he loves you just like he loves me.
Right.
So it's a very confrontational presentation of Christ.
Awesome.
So I wanted these 2. And so these were pieces that we did have translated, but you'd say, oh, they're small. But most of the time, the translators I have are working part-time on this in their free time because they have full-time jobs. And so this one here took 2 years.
Okay.
To go from like the beginning to actually having it printed in the end. And of course,
because it's not just a single person that translates. So you have translate, and you have review and review, and you have a number of people that review to make sure that it's really crossing the language difference, so that the concepts are understandable.
Yes.
And things like that, and then you can finally print it.
Yeah. We're working on some books too. So this is Living by Faith, and it's been in the works for, again, 2 years as well for this one. They were needing some copies of it, like pre-release copies. So I have a pre-release of it here, but it's still in the review process. So even though it's a book here, there's still more work, but it's close. And it's so nice to actually see the book when it's taken this long.
Yes.
The other thing is storybooks. I believe that there's a need for the storybooks that are from this area.
Okay.
The mission storybooks.
Okay.
And there's several books by Norma Youngberg, as well as some others, that really share, from an individual standpoint, someone going through the process of learning who God is, struggling between culture and God and family and God, and showing how much God is really a part and can be involved in their lives.
Okay.
And so I think these stories will be a great blessing to Southeast Asia. So we've been working on them right now in Khmer. This is actually a review. They were going through the process of reading it through for the last time. And so I actually put it into a book format for them to read their last read through it. So this one is actually like finished with the translation. The next process is actually to finalize the layout of it, and then we can print it.
Wow, that's awesome. And
So
what's the name of that book in English?
this one is Fire on the Mountain.
Okay.
Also, we do stuff for the mission. So we did the current Sabbath school lesson. So we
Okay.
didn't translate this. The mission translates it, but then we printed it for them.
That's really exciting. I'm glad those materials are available. And what other materials are being worked on at this point?
So we're still working on some other books like Sanctified Life in Khmer.
Now, Khmer
Is Cambodian, the language in Cambodia.
okay. Just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yes. And then we're also working, I have 2 translators in Lao. So we're
Okay.
actually working on some storybooks as well as the Living by Faith in Lao.
Okay.
Just trying to finish up some other storybooks. We have a total of 6 storybooks that we're working on, and most of them are in the review process, but that's a
Okay.
very slow process.
Yeah.
I actually have 7 translators, so 2 in Lao and then 5 in Khmer, but all of them are working just on the side of their
Okay.
job. So things go slow, but it's hard finding translators, finding them that know English and Khmer equally, like their native tongue. So finding some people that are strong in both is challenging.
Yeah. Because, some of these things that you want to have come across in the translation are concepts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you can just translate word for word and have the whole concept come across.
No.
So they have to be able to understand the concept in both languages
Yes.
to be able to express it, whichever direction they're going.
Yes, and that, God gives wisdom.
Yes.
And I actually do take time each day to pray specifically for the translators. And remember, Lord, they can't do it on their own. You need to help them. Give
Yes.
them the ability to understand. And then they'll text me and say, can you help us with this sentence? And then I'm saying, Lord, help me
Yeah.
to be able to put it into new words so that they can then understand it better. Sometimes it's just having different words, and then they get it.
To simplify the
Or
language.
taking out the pronouns.
Oh.
When you take out the pronouns, and actually, so the sentence becomes long, but then they understand it. They know the pieces that it's talking about.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so what's the next step for the publishing house then?
So the next step for the publishing house is, with the copiers, we're able to do short books. And most of what we've been doing for like the school is we need 20 books of this math book and 20 books of that math book. So that's not long runs. That's really nice on the copiers. And even the longer ones, like the Sabbath school lesson was 1,000. That still does nicely on the copiers. But when you do a larger book like these, which I'm wanting to do 5,000 of, that's talking a lot more pages, a lot more paper going through the machine. And so we're looking actually at an offset press
Okay.
that's able to do not color, but just the black text inside books.
Okay.
So it actually will do both sides of the paper at the same time that it's going through the press. And we'll do a larger sheet of paper. So it actually has many pages on one sheet of
one
paper
sheet.
that gets folded down and put into the book.
Okay.
So it not only is it cheaper to run, but it's also 4 times faster than the copiers. So we're in the process of purchasing one of those from the UK.
Okay.
In the process of buying this new equipment, of course, we're to remember the past. How
Right.
God has worked in the past, He will continue to work in the future. And because it is a hard thing to get stuff into the country. And so sometimes there is fear in that, but a reminder that God's been there in the past. I actually ended up having 2 containers get stuck and therefore cost more money.
Ah.
And when that day I came to the moment when I realized I didn't have enough money for the importing of this last container. My heart sank and I was like, Lord, you see the problem. And I didn't have really any courage at that time. All I could do is go out and pray and say, Lord, you see, you know. And I left praying, realizing that God, no great, like, oh, he's going to answer, he's from. All I knew was that I had the opportunity to tell him the problem. And he knew about the problem. I woke up the next morning and got a text message during the night that said 2 days before there was someone who had sent a check specifically marked shipping. And the amount that it was when it all came down and figured out was exactly the amount that was needed more to finish it. And that was given before I even knew about the problem. And so as I remember that, I know that God sees his equipment. It's not my equipment.
Right.
It's his equipment.
Right.
And he can take care of it.
Right. Wow. How's your family doing in Cambodia? How many children do you have?
We have 3 children.
Okay.
Our oldest is, well, she's 19, almost 20 now. And our youngest is 7. So we've got quite a range. I think for them being here in Asia has been a spiritual growth. They're not all at the same level of, of commitment to the mission, if you want to say that. But I've lost my daughter forever. She's going to be in Cambodia for the rest of her life. She's learning the language. She's studying in college with that language, trying to prepare for translation work. And I'm very happy when I see how she's made it her own. It's not about our choice anymore. The other 2, I'm happy that they're choosing God, and that's my main job every day is homeschooling and discipling.
So I know you said that you've lost your oldest daughter to Cambodia and she's preparing to be a translator. And I know that you had mentioned something to me earlier about one of the books that you wanted to share.
In her journey of learning the Khmer language, she's been taking language classes much more faithfully than we have and enjoying it. And so part of it was actually she ended up working on this book, reviewing it together with her teacher. So she
Wow.
spent several months where she would read through it, try to find all the things that she could find with it, and then discuss it with her teacher. And so this book is part of her work, her life spent in this book.
Wow.
As something she wants to, again, share with the Cambodian people.
Wow, that's
So,
neat. That's
yeah.
really neat.
So it's good to see her get involved.
Yes.
Not just because we're there, but because her heart's
She
in it.
wants to, yes.
Yes.
Yes, and God is leading her and giving her talents and skills that are so needed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is desperately needed. So, well, praise the Lord. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you've shared a little bit some of the challenges and some of the answers to prayer, but I wanted to ask you a little more about your personal relationship with Jesus, if you're willing to share with us.
I struggle with depression. It's easy for me to fall into it. And I see that coming here and experiencing things where it looks discouraging. It actually, in reality, is discouraging. But yet God doesn't want me to become discouraged. It's a matter of trusting Him in it. And though things are really challenging, in reality, the problem is real. The answer isn't something I can solve, but yet it is solvable with God.
Right.
Learning to put those problems and trust those with Him and not become discouraged is something I face, is something that I've been growing in. Each time a new thing comes, it is a new commitment to say, Lord, I'm going to trust you, to be there not just to solve the problem, but in my heart to give me the courage to wait upon you. Because it says, be of good courage, wait upon the Lord. Why? Because He's able to strengthen our heart. Not just in the realm of the problems, but His work in the realm of my heart is part of the whole solving of the situation. Was before I ever thought about Thailand, but wanting to be involved in God's work. There was the song, I'll Go where you want me to go.
Mm.
And in there it talks about that I'll go, but with my hand in God's hand. I often picture myself trusting and holding on to God's hand and Him holding my hand. And when things get hard, it's not just me holding on to His hand, but Him holding my hand too.
Mm.
And just recently, I was reading and I came across a quote in Ellen White's writings where she said, prayer and faith are the two arms that wrap around the neck of infinite love. I realized,
Wow.
God doesn't just want to walk beside me. He wants something closer, as a child who's sitting on His lap, turning to Him and wrapping their arms around His neck. And when you think about that, we who are so small, so feeble, so broken, yet He wants that closeness.
Mm.
And in that closeness, the child is focusing fully and completely on Christ, on God, on His attention is there. But also, if a parent has a child on their lap, the parent can't do something over here. The parent is what? Focused then also on the child.
Mm-hmm.
I realize God's wanting something very close for me, to put my trust, my hold upon Him as though He's the only one in my life. And therefore, He then also relates to me as like the only one.
Right.
But God is able to focus on me
Right.
and knowing what's happening in my life.
And that's one of the amazing things about Him. We have children, we have trouble trying to focus on more than one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But God can do it. It's amazing.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to thank you for being here today and sharing with us. I know there's good times and bad, and I just appreciate your honesty and sharing openly. It really gives us an opportunity to know how to pray for you also.
Yeah.
So I would like to invite you to pray for our friends the Rogers in Cambodia. Pray for the publishing work, for the translation work. It's not just the printing, it's also the translation. Pray for the right helpers, pray for the right equipment, the right timing, everything, that the Word of God can go out rapidly in Southeast Asia and to so many places where people need to know Him before it's too late. If you would like more information, you can contact us at Jesus for Asia, P.O. Box 1221, Collegedale, Tennessee 37315. Call us at 423-413-7321 or visit our website at jesusforasia.org. May God richly bless you until we see you next time on Jesus for Asia Now.